Hey babes, welcome back to Coffee Over Apples. My name is Steph. It's time for another bi-monthly check-in. And also, let's just talk about how my year is going in general. A little bit of stats before I get started talking about the books individually. The year so far stats. I've read 39 books this year. Considering that I set my reading goal on Storygraph and Goodreads to 1, I'm feeling really good about that. In total, I've read 13,652 pages. 85% of my reads have been fiction and 15% have been nonfiction. My top 5 most read genres are fantasy, horror, sci-fi. Absolutely shocking nobody. Then we have manga and LGBTQIA according to Storygraph, which those are not genres, but that's how Storygraph categorizes them. My average rating for the year so far is a 3.97. That's pretty good. I have given a lot of books 4 stars this year. I would say like maybe a quarter of all the books that I've read have been 4 stars. And maybe another quarter of the books that I've read have been below 4 stars, meaning that everything else was either 4.25, 4.5, 4.75. And I've had a handful of 5 stars this year, which is great. And possibly some like 2 all-time favorites. I thought I read more in May and June than I actually did. When I'm looking at the stack now, I'm like, that's it. But then again, I did have 2 audiobooks. So being a busy lady, it felt like I was reading more. In the past 2 months, I've read 13 books, and I'm actually really proud of that number considering how thick some of these are. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This was my first V.E. Schwab. I read it as an ARC. I had a good time. I did go through like a little bit of a roller coaster because for me, it was just like my one criticism is that it's a bit too long. And also that the very end, it just ended too abrupt. But the journey was interesting. The lesbians were toxic, were messy. I really liked the timeline over 500 years following Maria, who is from Spain, who ultimately gets turned into a vampire. Revenge happens. And then we're following Alice in the current timeline, like 2019 or something. She's going through things, sad lesbian energy, gets turned into a vampire after a one-night stand with a girl, and like drama ensues from there. So we're following Alice on her journey to figure out what the heck does she do now and who does she put blame on for causing her to become a vampire against her own will. And Maria, who is surviving through 500 years, and what she does with her time and energy as a messy lesbian. And it's great. It's great. I had a great time. It did make me feel things. It was a bit triggering. Trigger warning for domestic abuse. Trigger warning for narcissistic abuse, like definitely narcissistic personality disorders. Trigger warning for gaslighting, like a couple things like that. So it is a horror. It's psychological horror, I think, more than anything else in that sense. I really didn't find it gory at all. The spice was okay. I feel like it gave Interview with a Vampire vibes. Just the ending, if I could change one thing, was just too abrupt, even though the book was too long. So yeah. I got abducted by aliens, and now I'm trapped in a rom-com by Kimberly Lemming. I loved this. This was a great time. Super fun. I need the next one ASAP, and I also need to read everything that Kimberly Lemming has written because, my gosh, they're adorable. This was so freaking cute, y'all. It solved everything that I had issues with in Ice Planet Barbarian. So, like, if you read that and you were like, it's got dubious consent, and it's very straight. Nah, this is better. This is better. Also, it's a throuple. We love Dory. Everything was great. Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang. A new all-time favorite. It's not like my new favorite book of all time, but if I have to make an all-times fave list, it's on the list. Somewhere in the top 20, gotta say. I was very impressed by this. I cried. In the first 15 pages, got me crying in the club. Like, excuse me? How dare? Masterfully done. This book is going to make you think. This book is going to make you think. And at first I was like, I don't know. I'm a bit nervous because it's like the main character was a metaphor for white women. And is this going to be like a white savior trope? But the way that certain characters are given agency and are given the ability to choose what's best for their own people, and the way that other characters are allowed to be angry and called out despite the marginalized systems that run off of their oppression that our main character must be confronted with that they benefit from. Incredible. Incredible. 10 of 10 recommend. I read Dantaran volumes 1, 2, and 3. I love Dantaran. Dantaran is an anime and manga that just takes 0 brain cells for me to enjoy, because this entire series, all the characters in here share 1 brain cell. I love them. They're idiots. They're my favorite idiots on this planet. I want to protect them all. This is a horror comedy, and what I especially like about this is, like, so our main characters, one of them comes from a spirit medium family, the other one is obsessed with UFOs, and it's a romance in some ways. It's a rom-com, but our main characters go to prove each other that they're wrong. No, UFOs are real, or no, spirits are real, and turns out that they're both right, and they end up having to save the world and find his cojones because the aliens want to harvest his banana. I don't know why, but who cares? So they're on a mission to find his huevos that have turned into golden nuggets and been tossed away by a very vengeful, angry grandmother spirit. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but it's just so ridiculous. And it's also a horror about SA. Trigger warnings for that. It does get a little bit graphic sometimes, but my God, they're just so dumb, and I love them. Cosmic Heat. This is the 3rd book in the Galactic Gems series, and I adore it so much. What's really cool about this one, I had yet to read a romance where someone was using Zer pronouns. So that is exciting. Like, I know people in real life who have used Zer, but I've never read a character with that. So if you're looking for something with queer representation and someone that is non-binary and using Zer pronouns, there you go. This is following this burlesque dancer right here, and it's very wholesome. It's very spicy. There's a lot of spice. Okay. Sometimes the spice isn't always to my liking because I have very specific lines that I draw with certain things, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean you're not going to like it and you're going to have a great time. I know you will. I highly recommend this series so far. There's 3 books. Totally worth it. Cleo Evans is kind of a slay every time. Ring by Koji Suzuki. I did an entire video with my partner as a deep dive into why this is actually an intersex sci-fi. And nobody talks about that. It's not really a horror, y'all. I mean, like, scary things happen, and in ways it's horrific, but I feel like the horror is, like, secondary. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. It's very different from the movies. I have like a 20-minute video going deep into this, so I'm going to link that up above. It's got me thinking. And, like, at first I hated it, and I rated this 2 stars, but then I think I went back and bumped it up to 2.5, and then I think I went back again and bumped it up to a 3. When something has me really thinking, maybe it's worth something, you know? I'm not saying that the intersex representation in here is good, and this was written in the 90s, but, like, it's giving queer in different ways, and I'm like, honey, Koji Suzuki. A Far Better Thing by H.G. Perry. I read this as an ARC, and it's like, I wanted to love this. I really did. Part of me wanted to keep reading because I was really vibing with the main character. Like, I found him interesting. I found his situation interesting. He was switched at birth by fairies. A changeling was put in his place and is now living a luxurious life. And he's a lawyer who's getting bossed around by fairies. Otherwise, he's going to be tortured. And he's like, bruh, I don't want that. So he's their lackey now, doing their dirty work that he doesn't want to, but he doesn't have a choice. And he might have a chance to get revenge. So, like, that sounds hella interesting. So I was very excited when Tor sent me this. However, I DNF'd it just because, like, there were a lot of things in here that, to me, clearly read as if you are someone who is familiar with fairy lore, folklore, traditionally published fairy tropes. I feel like there wasn't even anything that crazy involving the fairies, that there wasn't even anything that out of pocket. And I was like, I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't care about fairies. I didn't care. I was more interested in the whole changeling thing and the swapped at birth and wanting to get revenge. But the story really did hinge so much on the world building around how fairies function. And I couldn't be bothered. And I'm really sorry for that. But I did like the author's writing, and if there's anything else that they write in the future, I think I will pick this up, and I'm sending this to a friend who I think is going to appreciate it. So many stars, an oral history of trans, non-binary, genderqueer, and two-spirit people of color. I also listened to this as an audiobook, and I went to go meet the author, a lovely, lovely human being. This was a pick for the annotation station. I feel like this is a very important book. This is the kind of book where I feel like if someone is in a moment of crisis about their identity, if someone is feeling alone in the world and scared and wondering if they're going to make it, this is a book that can seriously give someone hope in a time of crisis. If you are someone who identifies with that, please consider picking this book up. Entirely filled with interviews from 20 individuals who are various identities and talking about being an elder person. An elder person in the queer community is like a voice that is worth its weight in gold, because marginalized peoples are constantly at threat because the systems that we live under in capitalist societies benefit off the destruction of certain bodies. I said what I said. And so here we are able to hear from people who have survived, and that is beautiful with their positive messages of hope. This is very uplifting. So it's also got some like really dark moments where people talk about things that they went through as queer and trans and non-binary individuals. So please look into the trigger warnings. But if you need hope, here it is. Witch Queen of Redwinter by Ed McDonald. This is the third book and the conclusion to the Redwinter Chronicles, and I loved this. I had a great time. This might be my new favorite fantasy series. And I mean, the bar is kind of low because I haven't read many, and the only ones that I really read before this were mostly by white men, and I'm kind of rebuilding what it means to enjoy fantasy at this time, because I feel like based off of what I read before, it was actually really bad, and I don't even know what I really like anymore. So this being my first foray into well-written, diverse, queer, female main character, villain arc fantasy was delicious. It was amazing. I love our main characters. The romance was great. It was sweet. The ending was just sad and happy and sad, and like it made sense. It made sense. The magic in this is a little hard to describe. I feel like it borders on soft magic, because even though we have the gates, which are these different like levels that the magic wielders can unlock, that have very specific triggers for them to be able to unlock. And we don't necessarily get to see all characters or the main character whose POV we're from use all of the gates. We don't have a clear understanding how each and every single one of them work, just the ones that she has. And that's okay. It gets weird. The monsters are great. It feels like a cosmic horror at some points, and it's sad and great and wonderful, and I love our main character. I love the character arc. By Awakening, stunning. Really recommend this. Great job, Ed McDonald. Renewed some hope in fantasy written by white men. Go off, King. Then we have Rehearsals for Living by Robin Maynard and Leanne Birasamosak Simpson, a Black and Indigenous author. I read this as an ebook. Whew, this one was really good. I liked it, but I also feel like it's a book that can be very divisive. This is an honest conversation between two women of color who are Canadian about their experiences protecting their heritage. One, protecting land rights and the heritage and resources that are available to Indigenous peoples in the North Americas, and the other talking about police brutality and the BLM movement and creating safe space for Black voices. And it's like, when you have two women of color writing letters and being very honest with each other about these things, who have taken a leap by publishing this material for eyes that are not of their demographic to read, there's a lot of people that I think aren't ready to hear what these women have to say. But they said it, and good for them. Because what they really get down to in this is that we cannot maintain the status quo that has allowed people of privilege to maintain their comfortability and to seek change that is going to be effective. Those two things cannot exist. You can't maintain that you own this piece of land that North America remains as this kind of world power, and we consume the same amount of oil and create the same amount of carbon gases and like all this other shit, and think that we can solve the world's problems, solve hunger, fix the incarceration system, which is atrocious, like fix all these things and still be able to maintain all that. Like that doesn't work. And so they're very honest about that, and I appreciate them. We also did a live show where me and Natalie talked about it for the annotation station. So if you'd like to hear more about that, I'll link that up above also. So that's how 2025 is going so far. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these. If you think similarly or differently, consider becoming a channel member to get access to all of my book clubs. Your membership goes to support my mental health journey, feeding my cats, and getting more content like this. I post videos whenever I feel like it. Thanks for watching. Bye!